up, YouTube? It's September 24th. It's 2:24 a.m. This is just a real quick thought about Frederick Douglass and his son Henry Douglass, but like a certain event and his participation in that event. I'm talking about Frederick Douglass Jr. and what that means for Frederick Douglass more so in particular. But I'm just going to talk about what was going on during this time period first. Highlight what was going on. This is like during the Civil War. And so it's like what, 1863? So okay, as they was gathering up everybody, right, to join the Union or whatnot. I had read this book recently before I came back to Illinois, by the way, called Slavery in America from 1616 to 1877. So they had a few facts up in there also. So a lot of this stuff was reiteration. Some of it was new. But I was just thinking like it was certain states during this time where if they had joined within the army, then they'll be guaranteed their freedom, even though it was a lot of reneged. I can't rename them all. It's just off the top, and like some quick reiterations and all that type of shit. That's all this is. Anyway, so in Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, they had created the first black regiment called the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. So it was this real big battle that was coming up at Fort Wagner. Now, I'm not sure. I know this is like somewhere near South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. And then there was an island called Morris Island. Now, I'm not sure if the battle took place on that island. It could have been, more than likely. It could have actually took place on that island. And then Wagner, the Fort Wagner itself was on that island, or this took place on the landmass somewhere in South Carolina, Charleston. It was supposed to have been near the harbor. So if it didn't take place on the state itself near the coast, then it took place on the island. Anyway, the major battle that occurred was called the second. It was actually the second battle. So it was the second battle of Fort Wagner. First time they tried to raid it, it was unsuccessful. So this time around, just like previously, you got more than just one regiment, by the way. It wasn't just the 54th Regiment. You had people from all across, from different states and stuff like that. But this regiment in particular took place in this battle. So it was about like more of them than those on the side of the Confederates. I think the people on the side of the Union, as far as the mass of men that fought, I think it added up to like 5,000. Hold on, let me relight my cigarette. Yeah, it was about 5,000. And I want to say the Confederates, I think there was like a little bit over a little bit over 1,000, between 1,000 or 2,000 or something, but they were far less than what the Union comprised of. Anyway, they basically almost got massacred. Damn. I think the people on the side of the Union, they basically lost, and they had more casualties and more people killed than those on the side of the Confederates. So if I could remember the number, it was like what, 746 people. Damn, I know 245. I don't know. Anyway, the people on the side of the fucking Union basically lost that battle. And those men were promised a certain pay and all that type of shit, but they didn't receive the exact pay they were supposed to get. When they came back, it was supposed to have been a celebration, but they were basically spat on, porn, and all that type of shit. Anyway, the governor of Massachusetts at this time, it was some guy named John Albion Andrew. So since this took place in 1863, he was the governor. He became governor in 1861. He was supposed to have been elected a year before that. slightly a year before that in 1860, but 1861 up until 1866. So I'm going to assume that he was probably a Republican of the sort, but he was definitely supposed to have been some type of abolitionist before he became governor. And he also fought in the case concerning John Brown. This is Wikipedia. This had happened in 1859. The fucking John Brown raid, that's also called the Harper's Ferry raid or something like that. It happened in West Virginia, and he had like 22 guys with him all together because he was a hardcore abolitionist back in the day, and I think he was also a Quaker also. Some people claim that he might have had some type of mental derangement at the same time. Anyway, they had raided somewhere where weapons that belonged to the government were held, so some type of arsenal. So they went up in there, and there was 22 of them. Now, 12 of them was black, free black men. 8 of them was white, 1 was a fugitive, and then another one was a free slave. Now, I paid attention to those numbers, by the way, before I go on with this. The reason why I thought that was interesting, because I'm like, okay, what I'm going to say about Frederick Douglass and his son is related to this, but I'm going to treat this as a sub-part of it. The reason why I think those numbers is interesting is because the time period. Now, when I think about Harriet Tubman, okay, she was born in what, 1820? 1820. She was born in 1820. In 1849, that's when she started taking people along these routes so they can escape and become free. The Underground Railroad. So I'm like, okay, you had people being given manumissions as well. People that were slaves but somehow through the courts were freed and given manumissions and stuff like that. You had various laws to where like a free slave's rights may not really be protected in this particular region or area during this time period. I can't pinpoint them all right now. This is a long time ago. I came across this information. So, 1859, you had all this shit going on, and this is only 4 years before the Battle of Fort Wagner. 12 free black men. As far as the sociology back then pertaining to black people, to be a black person or somebody that's free, I would think would be a great convenience and something that anybody back then would appreciate. For you to have the psyche to participate in some type of rebellion to where you put your life on the line. It's 22 of y'all a part of this particular faction, although I'm sure as far as the preaching of this, and especially the approach, was something that a lot more people listened to and paid attention to. But 22 of these individuals had the gall to actually partake in some physical action to back up what they philosophize about. Now, the black portion, 12 fucking men, that is fucking phenomenon. That means they really internalized what these people were preaching about as far as the immorality of slavery itself. They could have just lived comfortable lives, relatively speaking, is what I'm saying. And even though it's 22 of you, considering the entire picture, you're greatly outnumbered. So from a certain perspective, one may look at that as being suicidal. But the whole point that's highlighted in the fucking gold color is the odds that these people knowingly were facing. That is to be fucking commended. You know what I'm saying? That's how I look at it. That's that. Anyway, they were unsuccessful because they got defeated by some Marines and state militia, both from Virginia and Maryland. So, John Brown has everybody. Now, this is part of the story that's fucking well known. He got hung. He got put to death. He was killed. It is a rumor out there. I ain't gonna say it's a rumor, but some suggest that he may have been steadfast through the whole ordeal, like he didn't break. But ultimately, he was put to death. So that's what happened with him. So as far as the governor of Massachusetts, later on in 1863, he was somebody that supposedly participated in that case, and it helped push his career forward. Now this part is according to Wikipedia articles. Okay, so you got that going on. And he's also one that could be, I don't want to say considered, but given some credit as far as his black regiment. Because being that he's a governor back then, that means votes and all that type of stuff had to take place. And somehow his signature has to have been a part of this. So he gets credit for that as well. So that's the dude that was the governor. Now as far as like South Carolina, I was curious about that. I'm like, who the fuck was the governor back then too? Some dude named Millage Luke. He got a weird ass name, Millage Luke Bonham. But he was only the governor for 2 years. So it's supposed to have been 1862 in December up until 1864 in December of the year. So that's the date for him. He was also a Democrat. That's as far as I know about him. All right. So anyway, going back to this battle. Now, the thing about Frederick Douglass, but more so his son Henry Douglass, is the fact that his son participated in that battle. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking about the movie I seen about this a long time ago when I was younger, called Glory, with Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman and a few other more popular actors. Now, in that movie, I think it's a good visualization because it gives you a good picture of the reality of what they were facing back then. Especially the part about the shoes, that was definitely true also. They didn't get the gear they were supposed to get until later on, and that's also attached to the deduction from the original amount they were supposed to get paid for joining or enlisting in the army also. So it was part of the flyers before this. Anyway, so considering all that shit, that movie is a good visualization. In other words, everybody part of this unit faced an equal amount of peril, in other words. So Frederick Douglass, somebody that's pretty popular back then, thinking about him, he had a fucking magazine that a lot of people read called The Liberator, right? Okay. His son is pretty educated because his father is educated, even though he was self-educated originally. Anyway, he means something. He might not be equal as far as the aristocracy. That's how I look at it. You know, like the political figures and everybody a part of government. And you got the abolitionists as well. He may not be the most popular, but he was popular enough. So his son is also worth something. He will allow his fucking son. This is my thought on this. I had put this on my Facebook in my notes section a while ago. He will allow his fucking son. This is the main part that this whole little talk is about. He will allow his son to enlist in the fucking army back then. This is new as far as black people collectively as a whole, right? As a mass enlisting, especially coming from Massachusetts. So he will allow his son to face the odds of, not the odds, face the possibility that another person coming from a background where they're probably even much more less well off, probably not as educated, but this person that's the son of Frederick Douglass faced the same fucking possibility that this person, who, to put it bluntly, ain't worth shit, faces. You know what I'm saying? His father, Frederick Douglass, is fucking aware of this. And then in the midst of his son being enlisted into the army, he also sent letters back to his father. And some of those letters was put in this fucking magazine, The Liberator. You know what I'm saying? That's genuine. That, to me, I felt like that is to fucking be noted. You You know what I'm saying? That's something that I give credit to. It's like, it don't even matter if you really agree with Frederick Douglass or not. He was supposed to have been more so like a reformer who ain't really considered to be that radical in the first place. But me, from my point of view, when I place that aside, I'm looking at the intention of it, like him allowing his son to enlist in the fucking army, facing the possibility of losing a child, which is supposed to be one of the most great pains that a parent can face, a person can face. Yet he allowed his son to put himself in peril. And that regiment didn't do that good anyway, overall speaking. Let's just, being factual about it, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's the main point. That's what I wanted to talk about. Let me see, is there anything else I wanted to bring up? Let me see, of course, Abraham Lincoln was the president during this time as well. He was president from 61 to 65. As far as the first guy that I mentioned, John Albion Andrew. You see, he was born in 1818, so that'll be 10 years after the importation of fucking slavery to the United States of America was outlawed and considered something other than what is promulgated, or what was promulgated back then. Let's see what else. Damn. So I do feel like I'm forgetting something. John Brown and Harriet Tubman. I already knew they crossed paths, but when I read a quick little article about John Brown, again, a Wikipedia article, they were saying, like, as far as that raid, Harper Ferry, Virginia, he did get in contact with both Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, and supposedly he tried to get them to join in on this raid that he had planned, and obviously both of them turned it down and whatnot. It's a lot more, but I'm still trying to keep it all pertinent. Abraham Lincoln, like I said, 1961 to 1965, so about 4 years. Even though he campaigned a lot earlier than that, because that little debate that he had in 1854, where he gave his feelings about the whole little racial issue. That was in 1854. Kansas didn't become a state until 1858. And there was a debate about that as well. As a matter of fact, in 1854, that was a part of the debate, the whole discussion about Kansas becoming a state. That's it. But like I said, the main thing I wanted to point out was Frederick Douglass and his son. I thought that was interesting, so I made a note about that about 2 years ago on Facebook. Something further to look into later on. But yeah, that's just something quick, something to listen to. 18 minutes. Alright.